Oklahoma football fans, college football fans, welcome into another episode of Oklahoma Sooners Live here on Oklahoma at the voice of college football. Going to get into it. A big matchup for Oklahoma this week, a top 25 matchup. Who would have thunk that? And it's a matchup for Oklahoma where I feel like this could be a difficult game given the circumstances. Oklahoma has pretty much locked their spot into the college football playoffs. All they have to do is win out now with an opponent that would love nothing more than to spoil their season. And of course, I'm not alone here today, joined by a good friend of mine, Chris Phillips. Chris, thank you so much for joining me.
Josh, appreciate you having me, man. Are we calling it a rivalry? OU and Mizzou? Is that
I
too
mean,
strong of a word? I know one side calls it a rivalry.
what do you consider a rivalry? Because I think there is bad blood between the fan bases for sure. So I would say yes. I don't know how much of a rivalry it is, but it is one. It was kind of similar to the Oklahoma State. The way I felt with that one was like, I mean, on the field it doesn't feel like it's a rivalry, but it sure is between the players, between the fans. But Oklahoma coming into this thing 8-2, 4-2 in the conference, doubled up their wins from a season ago within the conference, coming off of a dramatic win over Alabama in Tuscaloosa, 23-21, cutting it very close, but still coming out of there with a win, and then jumping up in the polls here in the college football playoff rankings to make their way into where they would be currently hosting a playoff game in the first round in Norman, Missouri, coming off of a 22-point blowout against Mississippi State, where Ahmad Hardy had a day. So both teams coming off of a big win, and especially for Missouri, just being able to feel like you still have a team regardless of who your quarterback is, and being able to win and win big at that without Bo Perbula in. Chris, kind of coming from the outside where you kind of cover the SEC as a whole, thinking of Oklahoma and where we saw this team maybe a couple of weeks ago, a month ago or so, we probably wouldn't have really predicted that this Oklahoma team, after a loss to Texas, after a loss to Ole Miss at home, would make it to the college football playoffs. But where do you see Oklahoma with their where they've landed there in the college football playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a team, man, they've certainly made strides. I think getting John Mateer back, obviously, and he's just gotten healthier and healthier and more comfortable. I thought you saw in that Tennessee game, he really started to plant that leg and start to take off and run like we had seen in the past, at least at the beginning of the season, I should say. So I think offensively, they've been able to run the football much better than they did early season as well. I know you guys have seen that. But it's been the defense. I mean, stepping up. And, I call Oklahoma's front seven the great equalizer, if you will. They're like the changeup or the cutter in baseball. They truly are the great equalizer, and they can change the game in one snap. I mean, we've seen it the last 2 weeks, right, against Tennessee and Alabama both, is that just, I mean, even in a Bama game, which they got outgained and the statistics all leaned one side, when you can force turnovers, Josh, and you make big plays, you get a pick six, those are momentum-changing plays. Those are game-changing plays, and OU's been able to do those. So that's probably my big question with them moving forward is, like against Missouri or against LSU, if the turnover margin is equal, what does the game look like? I'm not saying obviously they can't still win the game, but it does change the dynamic just a bit. And, I not, again, taking away nothing from the defense, but, at some point you kind of feel like turnovers, you can't always rely on those to supplement your efforts in winning a ball game. You talk to any coach, they're going to tell you some of turnovers is luck. Now, not all of it. Obviously, it's right place, right time. It's coaching. You look at some of the ones, again, they had last week against Bama, punching the ball out on that punt. That's not luck. That's just making a play. You know what I mean? That's good technique and good coaching and, obviously executing that play. But I think offensively they made strides. I think John Mateer continues to look more and more comfortable since coming back from the injury. And, yeah, I mean, what stands in your way, man. 2 weeks, two good teams. I think two teams that you feel like you should beat. And obviously, Missouri would love nothing more than to come in and play spoiler. So you're right. Going back to what you said, I don't know that on field it's much of a rivalry, but certainly there's tons of bad blood on both sides to a point where, I mean, again, I remember being in Norman with you. It feels like forever ago. And some folks taking some shots while I was there at Mizzou. Do they belong in the SEC? Do they not? So, yeah, certainly with the fans, it's got its flavor of a rivalry, and I'm expecting a really intense game Saturday.
Yeah, and in many ways, it feels like what could be a trap game. That's why I call this Oklahoma's most difficult game up to this point. And it's not that Missouri is the best team up to this point. It's just with all of the momentum leading up to this point, and now you feel like you've made it because you've got two more games and you're locked into the playoffs. Two more games, if you win those two, you're locked into the playoffs. And it's very easy to overlook a team like Mizzou, especially when they're on to their third string quarterback and haven't been very dominant since maybe week 4, week 5 here in college football. And so very easy for Oklahoma to overlook this Missouri team. But looking at Oklahoma's offense, like you mentioned, been doing a lot better. This season compared to last season, they've looked the part that you needed them to look for this Oklahoma team to be able to come out with wins, and that showed to be the case against Alabama and Tennessee. Really, just good enough, and that's all Oklahoma fans were really screaming for, really all season. You look at John Mateer, over 2,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on the season, 64%. Not great statistics there, especially from a guy who was a Heisman front runner here early in the season. Did have that 20-yard rushing touchdown against Alabama that really helped boost Oklahoma and put them up in the lead, especially after a big turnover there. And then, the turnovers, being able to create turnovers, 6 turnovers in the last 2 games. That's the big thing for Oklahoma's offense, that their defense was able to get those turnovers. And that's kind of weird to think of turning your defense into an offense. Special teams also helping out with Isaiah Satania with some big punt returns and things like that. And then, the thing in this game, I feel like it boils down to both defenses. Missouri's defense, 10th nationally in overall defense, allowing only 274 yards per game. Their passing defense is 15th in the nation, which, I think you look at that, that's one that Oklahoma, they're going to have to pass the ball. They're going to have to find a way to pass the ball. The run game hasn't been extremely efficient, but the problem is the passing game really hasn't been that great either. Missouri's defense also pretty good on run defense as well, 104.8 yards per game. But Oklahoma's going to have to find ways to exploit that Missouri defense, get points on the board, and their offense is going to have to be a little bit more coherent than they have in the past couple of weeks. When you look down through this matchup, starting off with Oklahoma's offense against Missouri's defense, where do you see some ways that maybe Oklahoma can come out ahead, or really just overall in the matchup with Missouri and Oklahoma going against each other, from Oklahoma's offense to Missouri's defense?
Yeah, Josh, I think everything on paper tells you it should be a lower scoring game, right? I mean, you mentioned the defensive side for Mizzou, and I think Corey Batoon and company, a really underrated unit. What they've done this season, it kind of goes hand in hand with what Missouri is as a football program, just a little bit underrated, it feels like. But Corey Batoon's done a good job. You're right; they're really good against really in all phases. I mean, they've been pretty solid against the run. They stopped the pass. They gave up 235 last week to Mississippi State, although some of that I think was in garbage time. But for the most part, they've been really stingy. I think for Oklahoma, I do think you're right. I mean, I think every coaching staff wants to find balance, but you're going to have to find some success through the air. You're just going to have to loosen the defense up a little bit. If you become one-dimensional against this Mizzou defense, it's going to be a really, really, really long day. So I think loosening up that defense, getting the passing game going. I want to see John Mateer take some risks, take some shots. Again, just kind of get things loosened up. And the running game has been much better. I mean, I think that Oklahoma can run the football on this Mizzou defense. I mean, Mississippi State last week ran for over 100 on them. Granted, again, it was in a 22-point loss, but still, the opportunity will be there. But I think you've got to win with the pass first and loosen that defense up a little bit. Because if I'm Mizzou, I'm playing right up on you. I'm daring you to throw, because the passing game, like you said, hasn't been quite to the level that I think it needs to be to this point. So it's just going to be another Saturday. But I think John Mateer's got to be smart with his decision making. Got to use his athleticism, of course. I think that'll be a huge dynamic on those third downs, third and mediums. Can he convert? Get outside of the pocket, use his legs, create plays that way. And so, again, everything on paper tells you it should be a low-scoring game. And the way Oklahoma has been scoring points is, again, with their defense setting them up. Either it's short fields or, a pick six, like turning that into a defensive touchdown. It hasn't been like an offensive display necessarily over the last few weeks. They're going to need a little bit more, I think, out of the offense, unless you're banking on a touchdown or two again from the defensive side. Just hard to make a living depending on that week after week. But I think there's success to be had there, but I think it starts in the passing game.
Yeah, and you're right too. You can't really rely on the defense to perform at that way that they have the last 2 weeks. Getting 3 turnovers on defense in a single game is not something you want to lean on and expect that to happen week in, week out. And especially against a Missouri team that is going to lean on the run. It's their offense is going to lean on the run, so Oklahoma's defense is going to have a little bit harder time. It's always harder to force a fumble, especially from a running back and an experienced running back at that, than it would be to get an interception, cause a pass breakup, and do that kind of thing. But for Oklahoma's defense, the defensive battle here is very obvious. Like you said, I agree with you. I think kind of leaning towards a lower scoring game because it really comes down to Missouri's rushing attack, which is one of the best, sixth nationally in rushing on offense. And Ahmad Hardy over 1,300 yards on the season, had a 300-yard game last week against Mississippi State. And it's definitely an offense that's going to lean on their rushing success, which you go back to a week ago against Alabama when Oklahoma went into Tuscaloosa, that rush defense being Oklahoma's strongest point, didn't their strongest suit on defense really didn't do anything to slow down the tide. Where this game, it's the total opposite, where Oklahoma's strength has an opportunity to slow down Missouri's strength. How do you see this matchup here now jumping over to Oklahoma's defense, being able to match up against Missouri's offense?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really fascinating is what is the status of Bo Prabula and does he play in this game? Looking, I've talked to some Missouri folks. It does sound like he's going to give it a go here. So I don't know that this is the game to trot out your quarterback at like 70 or 80% against the Oklahoma defense and what they're doing. But I think they probably feel like an 80% Bo Prabula gives them a better shot than 100% Matt Zollers, all due respect. So, but like you mentioned, the bread and butter here is the running game. And it's not just Ahmad Hardy, even though he's the feature back and he's the star. Jamal Roberts is one heck of a player, too. He's been the Robin to Ahmad Hardy's Batman, if you will. But this dude's a freak, man. I mean, he's the real deal. He's a load to bring down. The good news is, again, if you're Brent Venables in Oklahoma, I think you know what to key in on. I mean, you got to stop the run first. There's no question. You got to at least limit what Ahmad Hardy can do. I thought Bama did a really good job of that in the game where they played them in Como. So it can be done. I'm sure they're watching a lot of that film this week. I mean, Ahmad Hardy in that game ran for just 52 yards, which for him, again, really low rushing total. Funny enough, Mizzou still ran for 163 yards, and 61 of those came from a Bo Prabula. So that's another wrinkle that I think he gives them if he indeed is able to go in the quarterback run game. He's just athletic enough to be annoying for a defense, if you will. But you're right, man. It starts with 29 from Mizzou. It starts with the running game. You got to kind of bottle him up and keep him from having that really, really big day, kind of like he had last week. You do that. They've got some guys on the outside with Donovan O and Brett Norfleet at tight end and Marquise Johnson and Joshua Manning and Kevin Coleman. That there's some guys that can beat you there, but it has to start with stopping the run, man. It has to start with the front seven doing what they've done the last couple of weeks, being a difference maker, forcing the issue. And, I'd fully expect Brent Venables to have a great game plan against them and key in on that and make them prove early, like, hey, we're going to dare you to throw, and if you can do it, we'll respect it. But you gotta show us you can throw it on us. Run it, stop it, take care of it. That's going to be the key in this one for Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I did see Bo Prabula listed as doubtful in the incident on the injury report last night, or the availability report. So it's possible that he's not in the game, which I think really helps Oklahoma in some regard, but it also is a bit alarming. I think you have to also look at that and say, don't just completely forget the passing game and act like it's not there. Otherwise, you might get receivers past you downfield.
I do think if Zollers is the guy at quarterback, they are very one-dimensional. I mean, it's just the nature of it. You lose your starting quarterback. It is what it is. But that's something I think you can exploit if you're Oklahoma. Again, I'd be stacking the box, bringing the pressure. You can get them in some third and obvious. It's going to be a very long day for the Missouri offense.
Yeah, and with Oklahoma's defense, too, ranking fourth nationally in rushing defense, only allowing 82 yards a game, 1.8 yards per carry. That's an incredible rush
That's the
defense.
matchup of the game, man. That's the
Yeah.
good on good. That rushing defense against the rushing offense from Mizzou. If you like car crashes in the trenches, I think that's the one to that's certainly the side of the ball to watch.
And I think that's ultimately what a lot of traditional college football fans love to see. The matchups where it's in the trenches, and then on top of that, just where you've got good on good. You've got your best against our best. Let's see who can come out ahead. And I think Oklahoma feels pretty good about their chances, at least the fans for sure. And I think the team as well, obviously. Getting into keys for victory, I think we've kind of already talked about some of them. I think obviously for both teams, as always, protecting the ball is a big one. Oklahoma has been prone to turning the ball over themselves quite often throughout the season. I think -2 in the turnover margin on the season, where in the last couple of weeks they've been out ahead. They've been able to get those takeaways. One big thing for Oklahoma that I think they've been able to hang their hat on is knowing that red zone offense still best in the country at 100% in the red zone, scoring 100%. A big part of that to Tate Sandell, just locked down. Just no matter where it is that you line it up, as long as it's within 55 yards, he's going to nail it. 7 for 7 from 50 plus. I think he's got 20 or 21 straight made field goals now with the school record. What are some keys to victory for both these teams, you think, for Oklahoma and Missouri?
Yeah, I mean, I think we already talked about it for OU. I mean, stopping the run has got to be key number one. And I think if you're able to do that, it widens the path to victory significantly. Also, dude, you mentioned Tate Sandell. He's been insane. He's been insane in the specialist game. I mean, really, truly. I don't know what length shorts he's going to wear this weekend, but I don't know that it really matters. That guy at this point could go out there in a Speedo, and as long as he's making kicks, I think Oklahoma fans are going to be pretty ecstatic with it. So, yeah, I mean, I think the recipe for Oklahoma though is pretty similar to what it has been. In this game, certainly you got to stop the run. I think you need your front seven to be active again and force the issue, force some turnovers, force some, make some big time difference making plays. I just winning the turnover margin is so pivotal for this group. You've seen the way it's paid off the last 2 weeks. So I think doing that yet again, I mean, and obviously taking care of it on your end as well, winning that turnover margin. So I think in a game like this, man, where it's going to be a slugfest, it's going to be a rock fight, I think it's pretty simple. You got to be able to stop the run on their side, generate a run game on your side. We talked about the passing game, how key that is, loosening up the defense, but continuing to make big plays, on the defensive side and the defensive front and being active there. I think you've seen the recipe over the last couple weeks, and maybe this is the week where the offense explodes. But like you said, Josh, the goal coming in this season was just give us enough. Just give us enough. We know we're elite defensively. Just give us enough offensively where we're not putting our defense into bad spots. They've done a pretty good job of that to this point, and it's why they're in the position to make the college football playoff.
Yeah, and for Oklahoma, another thing that I think really plays into their favor in this game is looking at that availability report. Really, 2 players on there listed as questionable with R. Mason Thomas and Gentry Williams, which R. Mason Thomas is no doubt a loss when he's not on the field, and he's definitely an addition when you get him on the field. But it seems that guys like Taylor Wine and Owen Heineke and the depth there at that position really steps up even when he's not on the field, as you saw last week against Alabama. And then, of course, Gentry Williams not able to play, but then you've got your true freshman in Cortland Guillory breaking up passes. You got Eli Bowen, still a younger guy, a sophomore, going out there and doing his thing. Eli and Peyton Bowen, man, what a huge game for the 2 brothers there last week. When you look here down the rosters on these 2 teams and pay attention to specific players, it may be obvious. Is there any players that you think not quite as obvious for either team as being a spotlight player, a breakout player that if they have a big game, this could really be the player that changes the game?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the obvious, right? Because, of course, you can go to the quarterback, you can go to Ahmad Hardy. I think for Oklahoma, we mentioned the passing game. I think on the offensive side, the tight end, Jaron Kanak, is a guy, getting him involved. I think as that safety valve for John Mateer, we saw it so much early in the season. Certainly when I was there against Michigan, he played a big role in that game. And we've seen it throughout the season. I think Jaron Kanak's a guy that, getting him involved early and often, finding the weak spots in the defense, converting some of those third and mediums, if you will, serving as as John Mateer's go-to target. I think Knack could be a guy that makes a big difference in this ball game. For the Mizzou side, I mean, again, they're going to have to throw. I'll go to this. I think Jamal Roberts, the other running back, is a guy really to keep an eye on. Really elusive, explosive,
Yeah.
more of a scat back than I think an Ahmad Hardy is, who's more of your big physical ground and pound. He's got speed too, of course, but Jamal Roberts, a little bit different running style, but you're going to be so focused on stopping Ahmad Hardy. Do not forget about Jamal Roberts, man, because this dude's a beast in his own right. So I'd go Jamal Roberts from Mizzou. I think Knack for Oklahoma. I think those are two guys that'll. I think their performance will go a long way in determining who wins this ball game.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, the thing with Jaron Kanak too is that the entire season, fans keep on wanting to see him have those breakout moments, and he just has not really been given the opportunity. And it's definitely one that I think, especially as quiet as he's been, to finally have another breakout moment here down the stretch could definitely be big. So I totally agree. And then, of course, with Mizzou too, having two great running backs, really, both of them, because I'm trying to remember exactly which game that was. I think against Texas A&M when Robertson ended up having a big game. And
Yeah.
so,
He had one against South Carolina too when I was there. He balled in that game. So
yeah,
and I wasn't nearly as familiar with him. And you're right, it's Kanak. That's a guy who for some reason I've butchered his name all
I
season.
think all the ESPN guys call him Kanak as well, though. So I don't blame you at all.
Yeah, I've butchered his name all season. I
No,
apologize to the good folks of the Kanak family. So
no, you're all good. All right, getting down to predictions. I think last night it was sitting at 7.5 for Oklahoma, 7.5 point favorites. Open up at 9.5. I don't have written down what the over under was, but both of us kind of picking a lower scoring game. I think based on if I remember correctly, I think 41.5, 42.5, something like that. I'm thinking it will probably go over that point, but still a lower scoring game. I think Missouri's going to have a hard time scoring the ball against Oklahoma. But it's also an Oklahoma team that at this point they just know that they don't have to go out there and go balls to the wall or anything. They just have to go out there and win this game. Give me your score prediction here for Oklahoma, Missouri, here on this fine Thursday.
yeah, I think it's a little bit of a higher scoring game, believe it or not. You're right. The over-under is sitting at 41.5. Everything on paper tells you that it's going to be a lower scoring game, although 41.5 is a pretty low number. How much does revenge factor play in this game? Obviously, we recall what happened last year, really, really ugly game, and Mizzou would love nothing more than to come in and play spoiler. Josh, I think Oklahoma's going to find a way, though. This is a team that's red hot. They've got as much momentum as anybody in college football. I do think defensively, the front seven is going to continue to be the great equalizer. I just, it's one of those things where it's like when you have that momentum defensively where you're finding the football and you're making plays, it's kind of like baseball where hitting is contagious, right? And it just comes in bunches and it comes in waves. And I think that's going to continue for the defensive side for OU. Which I think is going to put the offense in some really good positions. Mizzou's just one-dimensional. I think even if Bo Prabula plays, they're a very one-dimensional offense. I think Brent Venables and company will be able to key in on that. Going to make life really, really tough for them to move the football. Offense is much better than Missouri's have struggled against this Oklahoma defense. I think Mizzou, it's going to be tough sled. I think Ahmad Hardy probably still gets his because he's a great player, but I think they'll be able to bottle him up and limit him, especially I think winning in the red zone if and when they get down there, obviously. I got a final score, something like 31-20. I do think it's a much higher scoring game than what that Vegas total is going to indicate. I think part of that is because Oklahoma, again, I think their defense is going to put them in some really good spots, short fields. I wouldn't doubt they don't have a defensive touchdown again. Really, truly. Wouldn't doubt there's a special teams touchdown at some point. So I like Oklahoma to win. I like Oklahoma to cover in this game. Whether it does hit the over or not, I think OU wins this game. I think they get some revenge for last year, and it's a team that I know you called it a trap game, and I get it to a degree, but man, it's so very clearly defined what the goal is and what you got to do to get there, and you just got to play 8 more solid quarters, man. 8 more solid quarters, and you're in the college football playoff, and you achieve the goal that everybody had set out for the Sooners. I think they will handle their business this weekend and set up a kind of winner-take-all game next weekend against LSU.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking over on that over on the total, but I'm sitting here a little bit more around 28-17. I think Missouri's going to play a really tough game. We've kind of already alluded to that. I think Missouri wants to upset Oklahoma. That this is definitely a rivalry more so on one side than the other, and they love to upset Oklahoma and to be able to take them down. So 28-17 is going to be my official prediction, and I'm looking at this game too. I think I like that you brought up the defense and possibly another score. It's been 2 weeks in a row, or I guess 2 games in a row. Tennessee, Oklahoma scored 13 off turnovers, 17 off turnovers against Alabama, and in both of those games, the defense scored a touchdown for themselves too to really help the help the offense out and put some points up on the board. I wouldn't be surprised to see something of that regard. Tackles for the loss when Grayson Miller pins him deep, maybe gets him into this end zone for a safety. 28-17 is what I'm kind of looking for. The thing that I think makes some Oklahoma fans a little nervous is that you're going all out with the Unity jerseys, those smoky gray jerseys at 11 a.m. That just smells like dangerous territory. But nonetheless, it's going to be a good matchup. Both teams really looking for something to answer back from. Oklahoma being able to answer and keep on rolling with that momentum. And if they win these last 2 games, the momentum leading into the playoffs is tremendous for them. And it being able to host a game at home in the first round of the playoffs would be huge for this team, and it'd be a scary team heading into the playoffs, no doubt. But Chris, I appreciate you very much for joining me. Make sure to let my listeners know where they can find your great stuff.
Yeah, Josh, I appreciate you having me, and the thought of a home playoff game in Norman. Twist my arm to get me there. I'll put it that way. That would be man, what a scene that would be. Just getting chills thinking about it. But yeah, we're at SEC Unfiltered, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your content, all across your favorite social media platforms, podcasts, YouTube, of course, our website, secunfiltered.com. And crazy to think, man, the tour, like I was telling you pre-show, is about to end. We've been on the road all season long. We'll be in Austin, Texas this weekend to watch Texas, Arkansas. Really fun surprise coming next week for what the travels are going to entail next weekend, the final weekend of the regular season. Plan is definitely to be in Atlanta for the SEC championship. And yeah, the plans, we're going to travel for a playoff game, man. Josh, I just don't know which one it is. So you never know. Maybe it's Boomer Sooner. We just got to wait and see what the bracket looks like.
Yeah, I mean, based on what it looks like right now, that'd be definitely a fun matchup between Oklahoma and Notre Dame. But anyways,
Right.
appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.